So Transformers 1 is not getting a sequel. That's the news that many of us have woken up to this morning, and I intend to dive a little bit into this, give my thoughts on it, and what the potential future for Transformers may be, as we look also at the past. Now, good morning, everyone. I say good morning because it's currently still 11 o'clock as I record this. I don't normally record videos this early. I like to sort of stream later on in the day, but I kind of wanted to cover this now. Now grab yourself a cup of Energon or coffee or tea, and let's get into this. So this is, again, the news we woke up to this morning. Surprising? No, not really, but I do have some thoughts on it, so I'm going to read the article to you. So reports are coming in that director Josh Cooley has confirmed that Paramount currently has no plans for a sequel to Transformers 1. This can likely be attributed to its unfortunate box office underperformance. With this, and the fact that Transformers G.I. Joe crossover movie has no updates, the future of Transformers movies at Paramount in general is looking shaky at the moment. Right, so, if you guys have any thoughts as well, feel free to drop them in the comments, but, I mean, that picture of Orion pretty much sums it up. Also, just so you know, we will be potentially diving into spoilers for Transformers 1, so that is your spoiler warning. Consider that spoilers for Transformers 1, Rise of the Beasts, and, modern sort of Transformers content. Now, a lot of people blame the marketing team for this, and while I think there can be, that might be a factor, I'm in no way inciting hate or blame here, but you've also got to consider from the marketing standpoint of what their higher-ups tell them. It's like any sort of department. The marketing team could be really trying their hardest. The people at the bottom of the marketing team could be really saying, hey, this is a serious movie. Let's make a serious trailer. And the higher ups could be like, no, that's not where our audience are at. Our audience are kids. Let's, market it for kids. So, when people blame the marketing team, you've got to really look at, is it the marketing team in general? Is it the higher ups in the marketing team? Is it the people at Hasbro higher up than the marketing team, the supervisors or whatever? Because I think the general marketing team, to blame them might be a bit of a stretch and unfair. Because you've got to, remind yourself, a lot of these marketing team people could be Transformers fans themselves and they want to see the movie succeed. So, yeah, while it's not surprising, I'm quite saddened by it, and especially with the G.I. Joe movie. I never really got into G.I. Joe myself, but the last couple of years I've really sort of started to warm up to it. Not that I didn't before, but it's just not something that I crossed over into. But the more I've sort of read the comics and looked at the crossover film, I've wanted to sort of look at it a bit more. So what I want to talk about is the fact that this is nothing new with Transformers, and you might be thinking, when else has this happened? Now let's look at when it's not, when things haven't gone to plan with Transformers. So, first thing is we've got to go back to the 80s. Now, with G1, we had season 1, 2, and 3, of course, the 86 film, but the series here. And then we go to series 4, which is the Rebirth, which was, I've always found it a bit weird, not the story or anything, but the fact that it labels it as a season when it's like 3 episodes long. You can watch the entire thing in like 66 minutes or something. Whereas, season 1, 2, and 3 had loads of episodes. And obviously then we had the Japan continuity takeover, and we went into all the, Headmasters, Victory, all that stuff. And then, the time of the Beast era comes along, and we have Beast Wars, and we have, 3 seasons of that. Then we have Beast Machines, which after season 2 ended, It was supposed to go on to another series, for Transtech, and that never happened. Then we go into other series like Transformers Animated, and that had 3 series, and it was supposed to get a 4th series, and it never did. Then we also look at the line continuity, one of the most notorious for this, and the line continuity with Transformers Prime. Season 4 of Transformers Prime, that would have been insane. Having space pirates, and that would have been very different. But of course, the whole story for Beast Hunters was originally not planned to happen. We were supposed to get all the season 3 and 4 of Transformers, but it went a different direction than what it was intended to. Now, then we go to Predacons Rising, and that concludes everything. So we didn't really get the true Transformers Prime ending. With G1, the Rebirth sort of tied it all together because it was ending where Japan took it over. So we never really got the actual ending for G1, technically. Animated, we never really got the ending for. The Beast era, we never really got the actual ending for, the original ending. I'm not talking about having a conclusion here, just as a bit of not a disclaimer, but just to put it out there. I'm not talking about this being an ending, not having an ending. I'm talking about not having the true intended ending. Perfect example, my stop motion series, I intend to end it a certain way. When I get to that point, when the story's concluded, I will end it. But if I just suddenly decide next week, I don't want to do stop motion anymore, got to wrap all these storylines up and tighten a bow, make it look neat. That's what I'm talking about here. These aren't the true endings. Then, with the Michael Bay films, Last Night was supposed to set this whole cinematic universe up, and it never did. Now, just to give some clarity on that, the reason why people say The Last Night doesn't make sense, one of the big reasons, is because it was setting up this whole cinematic universe. And because people didn't like the first installment and found it confusing, they basically, the sales didn't do well for The Last Night, so then it, ended after that one. Now, for that, basically, if The Last Night succeeded, we would have got this whole cinematic universe, which would have explored all these questions that people had about, World War II, Bumblebee and Hot Rod, and all these other questions about the law, the knights, everything. It would have all been explained, but because, again, I'm not trying to incite hate or blame here, but because it didn't do well financially, we never got those questions. So when people think about The Last Night, all they think about is these unanswered plot holes, and it's because they were never concluded because the film didn't succeed. But if it did, we wouldn't be in this situation. Everyone would probably be able to understand it, and it's because fans really didn't give it a chance. And continuing on from this, we have other medias like the IDW comics, where I've been to TF Nation a couple of times now, sat in the panels, and it has been mentioned that on some plot lines they wanted to end it this way, but a perfect example is the More Than Meets the Eye with James Roberts. Absolutely love that series. I love James Roberts. Such a great guy. I've got his books, and they go into his original plot ideas. And in other comics as well, not just the More Than Meets the Eye, but there's other plot lines where they were concluded differently to how they were originally concluded, or the comic sales didn't end. The comic sales didn't perform to what Hasbro wanted, so certain things had to get concluded, and that's kind of where IDW sort of just ended with Unicron. And then we, for some reason, get IDW 2.0 continuity, and that comes and goes, and yeah. Now, a lot of this is down to sales, obviously. What will people enjoy? What do the figures of the sales show? And it's really a marketing thing in some ways of what the audience is. Skybound Transformer comics, Skybound is very new, so don't spoil anything in the comments for anyone, please. Any people want to be reading these without spoilers, and because it's new, people are excited. So just please don't flood the comments with Skybound spoiler warnings. But Skybound's very new, and I've seen interviews where they say that Skybound knows where they want to end their Transformers run, and that is, when I heard that, I was like, thank you, because they have the ending in mind, and they said they don't want to drag it on for too long. Now, what too long could be is dependent on who you are. Is a Transformers comic too long when it goes for 3-5 years, or is it too long when it goes for like 15 years? Like IDW went for like over 10 years. So whether they mean they want to do it for a few years and leave it, because they have the true ending in mind, and that is so good at this point. But if Hasbro come and say to Skybound their sales aren't going well, and they shut Skybound's story down, they're going to have to conclude all these storylines. And that is Transformers' greatest strength, but also weakness. In a way, Transformers is a bit like Doctor Who, how it can just continuously regenerate itself. But on the other hand, it's the greatest weakness because we never conclude these stories, and we're seeing the same with Transformers 1. Josh Cooley said he had ideas for Transformers 2 and 3. I'm just going to call it 2 and 3. I'm not going to go Transformers 1, 2, 1, 3. Transformers 2 and 3. He had stories for the trilogy. And I mean, Transformers 1 was such a powerful standalone film. Just imagine what it could have been like as a trilogy. Just think about that for a moment. Now, with this news, it's very disheartening because no matter what your stance was on the film, majority of people like it. I've seen some people who don't like it, and that's fine. No matter what your stance is on the film, Transformers fans have never had anything like this in a while, where it goes so deep into the lore and it really cares about the characters. There's some stuff in Transformers 1 that I think they could have gone deeper into the lore on, and maybe that would have happened on Transformers 2 and 3. Maybe Josh Cooley wanted to test the waters. There was a few things in Transformers 1 that I thought, I wish this would have happened. I think the final act with Prime and Megatron was a bit more fleshed out before they started fighting, and I don't mean fleshed out like it's not that I don't think they were fleshed out already. I mean the build up to them fighting, because as soon as Prime came back, it's like, all right, let's just start fighting each other. I kind of wish there was more of, like a conversation before that fight. I get it from Megatron's perspective, because from Megatron's, from his perspective, now anyone who's a Prime is, Sentinel Prime. He's a liar, and Megatron sees all, Sentinel and the word Prime and all these sort of leaders as, the enemy, as something oppression. And Sentinel's been going on about fighting the Matrix, and Megatronus was, with Orion trying to. So I said Megatronus, and Megatron D16 was, with Orion for the entire film trying to find the Matrix, and suddenly, D16 Megatron's world is torn apart. His role model is just shattered into a million pieces. Everything's filled with rage, and then here's his best friend that now embodies everything he hates. Prime, a leader. nobility, and he also has the Matrix. And I get why Megatron was so quick to fight, because everything that he now hates, his best friend now represents. However, I've seen people talk about Star Wars this way with the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight, mainly Star Wars theory, how he says he wishes there was more of a conversation before the confrontation between Anakin and Obi-Wan and Mustafar, where Obi-Wan tries to bring Anakin back to light and actually talk about things, and then they fight. That's what I wish happened here, was when Orion became Optimus, when D16 became Megatron. I wish there was a conversation between the two of them, who, which really does explore them just a bit further. But back to the topic at hand, we can actually see, if I present this screen, the figures here, the Michael Bay films, and all the live action films, and Transformers 1 right there. And whether you like it or not, Transformers were financially without its peak with Michael Bay. Whether you like it or not, you cannot deny that. Because look at the first Transformers film Michael Bay did, and look at the first Transformers 1 film with Josh. I mean, Michael Bay literally got 8 times, I'm not doing the exact math, but he got like 7 to 8 times as much as Josh did on his first go. Whether Transformers 1 would have been live action, maybe it could have been different, I don't know, because it's more of a CGI cartoony sort of film. And again, that could come back to the marketing, but I'm not pointing any fingers. Revenge of the Fallen, despite people hating it, did even better than the first one. Dark of the Moon, people say it's probably the best film in the franchise. Age of Extinction, people don't like, but still, it did way better. I mean, it's done, like, what's that, 12 times better than Transformers 1? Even the worst financial film done. Personally, I love The Last Night and Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts. I love them all. So when I say worst, I don't mean like I hate it. I mean like the worst financial one. Just want to clear that up because I love it. But the worst financial Michael Bay film still beat Transformers 1 by like 5 times. And Rise of the Beast, which still had some input on Michael Bay, still absolutely destroyed Transformers 1 in the box office. And I think this really comes down to Michael Bay. It's been on my mind for a while, and again, whether you like Michael Bay or not, whether you like the stories or not of the films, whether you like his big ass explosions, you can't deny that the figures reflect this. Now, yes, Michael Bay's figures did go down slightly after Age of Extinction, but he had the name. Michael Bay had the name, he had the team, he had the resources. Yeah, fair enough, people don't like the stories, but he had everything. Whenever there was a Michael Bay film on in cinemas, look how many TV spots there were on the TV. I lost count. There's a playlist on YouTube with so many TV spots, and I still don't think that that's all of them because I remember different ones. There's loads of different trailers. Michael Bay uses events like the Super Bowl. But for Transformers lately, it doesn't feel like it hits those big areas, personally. For me, it still feels the same. It still feels Transformers. I still love it. Still want it to succeed. But when Michael Bay was here, it seemed so much bigger. Like, it was, whether you like Transformers or not, this is where, Michael Bay was just throwing Transformers at the world. I feel like now, if it's Transformers, Hasbro throw Transformers at the world and only certain parts of it picks it up. Only the people who are really interested. And it just comes to the fact that it disappoints me that Transformers never finishes its stories, not its true endings. Because, as I was saying, G1, the Beast Era, Transformers Prime, and even Robots in Disguise. Because Robots in Disguise in 2015 was a bit of a weird one in terms of conclusion. Because I remember after season 2, after, spoiler alerts for season 2 of RID 2015, but after season 2, it was a whole thing with either going to get cancelled or we're getting season 3. And then they brought Starscream in for a bit of like a season 2.5, but then it was also marketed as season 3. And after RD season 2, it became a very weird thing of what season 2 ending is it? Does it end with Starscream, or is a season with Starscream, is that season 2.5, or does it count as season 3? Because after season 2, it goes very weird, and I've seen it on official things. The YouTube channel for Transformers. I've seen it on even the TF Wiki. I think even official things like it's not coming to me the word, but there's like episodes lists and other official marketing, like promotional things where they've put out the next season and they label it like season 4 or something. Even Sky TV or your general TV, I've seen the market as season 3. I've seen the market as season 2. I think I even saw the market as season 4. And RID, I do like. I'm the minority who likes it, but it does. That had a very weird conclusion. How it didn't know whether it was coming or going, and now with Transformers 1, it's like, are we getting to Transformers 2? At this point, probably not. But now the same can be said for G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe has a pretty bad track record, I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure anything G.I. Joe touches, it just doesn't do well. So Rise of the Beast sequel, probably not going to get that. And it can go two ways, I feel. I feel the first way is it probably won't get made. And if it is made by Hasbro, I don't know. I don't think it's very likely. And another way I can see it going is Hasbro, Paramount, not selling it, but giving it to another studio who is willing to take that risk. I don't know what studio that could be, but if Paramount sold the rights to the Transformers 2 and 3 screenplays and the G.I. Joe, again, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know how it would work, but if they sold the rights to those properties, gave them to another studio who could make the actual film, I feel like that could be a way we could get it. But I want to be sort of clear in whether it would be true to how it's supposed to end, because we're going back to the whole thing about the original endings versus a sudden, like, oh no, we need to wrap this up before Hasbro cut our funding ending. Because if a new studio got the rights to Transformers 2 and 3, and G.I. Joe, would they change it? And by change it, I mean, would they completely change the entire film? Because Transformers 2 and 3 have apparently got a story there. So if we gave them to another studio, would they completely change the story? Would they change the way characters are written? Would they just take what Josh has done and basically just chuck it down the toilet, essentially? Because that then lands us in a dangerous position of having a Star Wars sequel trilogy. How we had The Force Awakens, and then The Last Jedi came and threw away what The Force Awakens did. The Last Jedi absolutely took just set the screenplay on fire, pretty much. Didn't care about anything. Characters awful. People walked out of cinemas. And then by the time The Last Skywalker came around, that did the exact same to The Last Jedi. It just took what it did and threw it out the window and tried to tie it up, but just failed. And that's what we could get with Transformers 2 and 3. They could throw away what we've got with Transformers 1, completely undo character arcs, change the original story to the point where it's unrecognizable, and can we even say it's a true ending? So, yeah, I think that's probably where I'm going to leave it. It's just so sad because Transformers never finishes, and we never get the actual ending of anything. I feel like Rescue Bots is probably the only true ending we've ever got in Transformers, just because it went on for so long. Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and Transformers is just a brand where it just can't finish. It can't finish itself. It cannot conclude the story, and then when it does conclude, it doesn't give it the actual ending the writers intended, and by the time before it even finishes, Hasbro already announces their next Transformers project, and then people are just like, another one? And it's just, for me, I made a video a little while back about all the different continuities Transformers has, and should it just have one continuity? And I think that's Transformers' biggest strength and weakness, also how it can constantly reinvent itself, which is fantastic, but then it doesn't give it time to flesh itself out on one story, rather than saying, okay, for the next 10 years, we're going to be developing this huge Transformers timeline with all the games, comics, books, films, TV shows, everything in one big timeline. But no, it's like every 2 years now, every 3 years, we're getting a new Transformers series, we're getting a new film, or we're getting something where it's like the new current timeline when it just reinvents itself. And the one from the previous one doesn't get concluded the way it should have been. And now this new contemporary, brand new timeline that we're doing now, everyone's excited about, but as soon as the hype train ends, Hasbro are like, okay, it's a failure, let's cut the ending off, just wrap it up however you can, and let's move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and it just never gets to the point where it has its true conclusion. So that's just a really, really unfortunate thing, but, it all comes back to finance, and it all comes back to essentially Michael Bay, because when he was here, the franchise was a different one. Will Michael Bay return? I hope so. I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but just before people hate in the comments, just remember everyone comes from a different generation of Transformers. I mean, heck, even Generation 1 originally wasn't called Generation 1, it was just the Transformers. It wasn't until Generation 2 came around that fans started to dub G1 as G1. Then it was just the Transformers. So technically Generation 1, although now it's a canon name, technically Generation 1 isn't the name for Generation 1. So what I'm saying here is everyone comes from a different Generation 1. My Generation 1 was the Michael Bay movies, also G1 as well, because I grew up on the, on the original cartoon as well. But I came from the Bayverse G1 and also Transformed Animated. Other people come from the Unicron trilogy. People come from the comics. So everyone has a different introduction generation to Transformers. And if you could go back in time to when you were a kid, unless you're a kid now, then maybe wait like 20 years and then come back to this video. But if you could go back in time to the 80s and 90s, all that golden era that you think of as Transformers, if you could bring that back, would you? And that's kind of how I feel with Michael Bay, because it was a different time. But yeah. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I just kind of wanted to get this recorded and just have a bit of a productive morning when I'm actually just making content and not just, I don't know, doing whatever I would have been doing. Yeah. The only other couple of things I want to talk about is just some channel updates quickly. So I have a stop motion film coming out. It's called Transformers: The End of Days Part 2. And you can find the trailer. I'll just share my screen. You can find the trailer here. And it's coming out. So I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It's doing really well so far. The trailer, it's got loads of comments. Go check it out. I'll leave it in the link in the description below. So yeah, that's coming out soon. The only other update I kind of want to just touch upon is now YouTube apparently has a community tab. I don't really see it on my desktop, but I see it on my phone. Basically, it has a community tab where apparently if you're a public subscriber, you can make some posts on my channel. So feel free to do that. I also created a post recently where I asked you guys, would you like to see Movie Law make a return? And a lot of you have said yes, so I will probably be working on that soon. But that one person or two people who said no, how could you do this to me? You do this? Why? It's fine. I want to know. I want to know the audience's interest. And while we're on the topic, my buddy Thanatos Prime has started a Patreon. Go check that out if you are interested. Please suggest a video for him to review. So maybe he has a figure. He does a ton of Performers and Godzilla stuff. So yeah, go check that out. That's all I gotta say. If you have any thoughts on this, let me know in the description below. The description, the comments below. And yeah, I will see you next time. So until then, long. If you hit the like button, share it, follow me on Instagram, and then now Transformers. Follow me on Instagram, Transformers 2000, and below, below.